What's going on, comic fam? It is your boy, the bearded comic bro, and I am joined again for my first time ever having a returning guest to the show. I've got creator Rylend Grant. Welcome back, man.
How you doing? I think I was the first interview, right?
You
No, I'm
were,
the
which
first.
is super cool. You were my first ever interview. You were the first person who ever was like, sure, I'll let this dude who has 80 subscribers talk to me about comics, and so I am forever grateful for that. So, but yeah, I had you on a couple months ago. We were promoting your book before that, The Jump, that was hopping off on Kickstarter.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how it. Yeah, I mean, it was in May, I think, and
Yeah,
it feels like it was 10 years ago. So
yeah, and it's
COVID time.
it's COVID time. There's no rules. It's crazy. It's so I had you on for that. We were talking about The Jump Kickstarter, and so you were my first interview, which is then funny because I did one of the tiers on that jump where I got to be drawn in the comic book. So my first ever time in a comic book is in your book. So it's only fitting that then we'll bring you back on as my first returning guest. And we're talking about another Kickstarter again.
Yeah, I am gung ho about Kickstarter these days. It's just it is this amazing creative playground. I have a book out. It dropped today, I guess. This is dropping on Monday. It's called The Peacekeepers. It is a love letter to dark, quirky crime dramas in the vein of Fargo and No Country for Old Men. So if you like those movies, if you like case of season police dramas like The Wire or True Detective, if you dig Elmore Leonard novels, if you like comic masterpieces like Criminal or 100 Bullets, you're gonna love this thing. And it's it's a story that I mean, I've been if you watched my last interview and maybe you didn't, I've been writing in Hollywood, movies and TV shows for about 15 years. So, I've written for Ridley Scott and J.J. Abrams and John Woo and Justin Lin and Luc Besson and, on and on and on. So I write mostly kind of big poppy action movies, and I've been writing comics now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And this is the story I've always wanted to tell. When you're writing in Hollywood, you do a lot of jobs for them,
Right.
Hey, we're going to pay you to polish this turd. And, most of my career has been, polishing turds, other people's turds. I've made some really terrible movies slightly more tolerable. I've made some, good movies slightly better, that sort of thing. And I've written my own stuff. But yeah, this is one that's been, I mean, for 15 plus years, I wanted to tell this story, and I'm just really excited about it. I'm glad to kind of bring it to people. And Kickstarter is a wonderful place to do that. I mean, I do a podcast that we can talk about in a little bit called The Writer's Block with David Avallone, who's a big writer over at Dynamite. He does the Betty Page comic and the Elvira comic, and he wrote Drawing Blood with Kevin Eastman. But we do this podcast where we just bring on a bunch of creators and kind of talk about the state of the union every week. And we were talking about how comics has kind of entered this era of creator empowerment, quote unquote. And you saw a similar thing happen with the NBA over the last, a couple of years, 10 years. Guys like, LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard, Kevin Durant, kind of wrestling power away from the owners and kind of deciding what's going to happen to them. Where we play, who we play with, all the terms of the contract. If I don't like it here, I'm kicking my way out. And we're seeing this happen in comics to a certain degree, where creators are realizing that they don't need permission to tell the stories that they want to tell. And that's very much what happened here. It's like, well, I could have taken Peacekeepers around, and I would have found a home for it and everything like that. But it's the idea of going to publisher to publisher to publisher, and this takes months or years, and begging for permission to do your story is it's kind of ridiculous now, right? Because you can just kind of skip the middleman. You can go right to the consumer, and it ends up being it ends up being a better deal for you in the end. And now you're seeing, you have the peons like, me and David Pepos, who have kind of, in the last couple of months run our first campaigns, kind of out of necessity because COVID has kind of brought publishing to a halt. But then, the big dogs like Scott Snyder, I think he made $218,000 on Kickstarter. Keanu Reeves just made $1.5 million. It ends up kind of being it's a better deal for everybody. It's such an interesting, interactive, rabid fan base there, and I loved it. I loved doing the first Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Again, like, being able to kind of connect with a guy like you, and I actually put you in the book. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And if you're out there listening and you've always wanted to be in a comic book, we have that tier on the Peacekeepers. And so if you want to be in my crime drama, we can give you, we can put you in the background. We can cast you as a supporting character and give you lines. We can put you on a cover of the comic book this time. We can actually send you a physical copy of the book with your beautiful mug on it. So we have pulled out all the stops, and this isn't just a print the book, send it off Kickstarter. We have tried to make the most of the medium. Fan engagement is so amazing there that we wanted to take advantage of it any way we could, and so plenty of those tiers.
Well, and it makes sense because, like you said, like you're not just getting the book; you have the opportunity to kind of say, like, I want to be a part of something, and you can be drawn into a book, which is cool in aspects like that, and which is what Kickstarter gives you that ability. And I think what Kickstarter does, from what I've understood a lot, is it gives you that chance to talk to the fans too. Of like, there's even a dialogue of like, hey, is this an option? Do you guys have these tiers? And if you don't, maybe it's something that you look at down the road because you guys have that communication line, which I think is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, well, it's not even down the road. I mean, you're absolutely correct in that it is a collaborative process. I mean, it's like I wrote the story, and we have started to bring it to life with the art, but we are now on whatever the 5-yard line, the 10-yard line, and
Right.
we need all of you, the backers, to help us punch this in. And that means we might have to put you on the field. We might need help drawing up the play, all that stuff. And so we come to Kickstarter at the end, and it's like, okay, well, what do you guys want out of this book now? Tell us how to make it better. Tell us how to change the tiers. And that happens, it's like you put it out there, you get immediate feedback like, hey, and we were approved for add-ons via Kickstarter this go round. So they're testing an add-on beta.
Nice.
And we're still figuring out how to use it, but
Yeah.
the beauty of that is, like, we present a campaign in the beginning and we say, hey, what are we missing here? What do you guys want? And anything that anybody comes up with and says, hey, I want a keychain, or hey, I want this, or do you guys think you could do this? We can add it on midstream. Just say, hey, this is a new add-on.
Cool.
And we did that a little bit. You can drop a cover at the end or something like that. But I mean, the interaction is so amazing. We did this tier the last go around, and we're doing this again on Peacekeepers, where it's one of the more premium tiers, and I think we maybe only have 1 or 2 of them. But for a price, we will write an original 5-page story that takes place in the world of the Peacekeepers, starring you.
Awesome.
You as the main character, and that ends up being a collaborative process, because I get on the phone with these people, and hey, what do you like, what do you dislike, what are your quirks, what are your and I look at their social medias, try to get a sense of them, and then kind of write something that is uniquely and distinctly them, but then also uniquely and distinctly of the world, right? And so day one on the Jump campaign, we sold one of those, right? And great guy, really excited about it. And then almost immediately I got two backers that chose the draw me in and give me lines tier, right? And I assumed that those people wanted to be in the regular book, the Jump, because that's what that tier was built for. Again, like when you backed, you chose to be a character in the book. But then I talked to these guys, and they're like, no, we don't want to be in the book. Our friend just bought that original story about him tier, and we are purchasing this so we can be in his story. We want to be supporting characters in his 5-page story. And I thought that was amazing. What I'm saying? I'd never in a million years seen that coming, thought about that, and the way that kind of like the Kickstarter community gets gets together and kind of makes this theirs. It was it's just awesome, man. And it's like, you put a book out in a comic shop, and I've done that a few times now, and you don't hear much back. It's you do hear from fans on Twitter, and when we used to be able to go to cons, I'd meet people at cons for a weekend or something like that. But it's like, it is not this big and bad I mean that in a good way. I mean, it's like you get immediate feedback. You know what I'm saying? Every little move and adjustment you make on Kickstarter, you hear about it immediately, like good or bad. Hey, you did great here. You could have done this better. Hey, we're missing this. You know what I'm saying? And so it's interesting. I mean, it's like they're kind of helping you steer the ship.
Well, but that's the truth, right? When you talk about like this kind of community that's built of, you probably got guys like you said, the guys who wanted to be, no, we don't want to be in the book, we want to be in our friend's story that you're telling. And some of my friends who are like, oh, I got to get the first appearance of you in a comic book, like that are getting into a book for things that they might not have picked up for another chance. Like, so it's a really smart idea to have these ways that you can interact with the fans, because especially in this time that we're in, where you as creators are longing for those connections with the fans are longing for that just as much, and have that chance to talk with creators of why you did stuff and how to get drawings and things like that. So I think it's brilliant, utilizing those tiers that you guys are using.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's like an ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? Comics has always been an ecosystem, and I say this just about the business in general. I mean, it's like guys like me need guys like you, and
Right.
guys like you need guys like me. You have the show, and you have these viewers that want to see something new and exciting every week, and so you need guys like me to make books and come on and talk about them, right?
Right.
And I spend all this time and all this money making these books, and I need people to want to read them and hear about them and care about them and want to go out and buy them, right?
Yep.
And so I need guys like you. I need to come on, and so everybody kind of in this ecosystem serves a purpose and a role, right? And it's what I love about Kickstarter, is that what often gets overlooked by kind of creators who have their heads up their asses or whatever, is that the reader, the fan, is the most important part of that ecosystem, right? And they're too often not invited in to kind of be part of the show, right? So
Yeah, which is awesome. So you mentioned we've been talking about Kickstarter, we've been talking about the some of the tiers and stuff of Peacekeeper. You kind of mentioned briefly what the genre is. Can you explain a little bit more? Would you say what Peacekeeper is and where it kind of came about, this idea for the story?
yeah, well, again, it's I mean, it is a love letter to these kind of dark and quirky crime dramas, and yeah, I mean, the basic pitch, there is this group of kind of in over their heads bank robbers that are kind of terrorizing a northern Michigan county, right?
Mhm.
Hitting a bank in this town, and then this town, and this town, and doing a pretty damn good job. Our protagonists, I guess, is this kind of this community that hasn't been hit yet, and particularly the small town sheriff's department that is kind of the heart of this place. The bank robberies are getting closer and closer, and eventually the town gets hit, right? When the town gets hit, a beloved sheriff's deputy is killed, and all hell breaks loose, right? I mean, it was a step over the line. It was something the robbers didn't want. It's certainly something the cops didn't want, and it becomes this kind of cops and robbers manhunt story. And it's a small town story, but what ends up happening is when this deputy gets killed, it becomes a national story, right? And the
Right.
FBI and the ATF take the case over, and suddenly CNN and NBC and Fox News, and you got news trucks rolling in and setting up shop, and for a minute in time, every eye in the world is kind of on this tiny little town, as this manhunt continues. And so the ATF ends up not the ATF, the U.S. Marshals, excuse me. I'm using the wrong nomenclature there. But the U.S. Marshals take over the manhunt because somebody crosses state lines, becomes a federal issue, and the U.S. Marshals are trying to solve this case in a national, big city sort of way. And what they don't realize is that the case is going to be cracked in that small town by kind of this is a small town with big secrets,
Yeah.
It is about the kind of politics and the ebb and flow, the personal relationships of this town, and it's something that they can't possibly understand. And so this local detective has to pair with this FBI agent who is from the area originally, went on to bigger and better things. He goes to Quantico, could go anywhere, but he decides to have the FBI send him right back to Michigan, right? And so this is a guy who's kind of tasted the the sort of bigger city way of doing things, but he understands how this case is going to be solved. And so the two of these guys have to kind of pair up and kind of solve this case despite the stuff that the U.S. Marshals are doing. And so it becomes this really interesting kind of multi-layered investigation sort of thing. Like I said, kind of a case of season thing. So that is the setup for the larger story. It'll play out over 6 issues. This first Kickstarter is for the first 2 issues, just kind of maybe the first act of the story. So yeah.
Nice. And it's all, so first 2 issues for the Kickstarter, are they going to be one solid book then, just in kind of 2 chapters, or?
Yeah, so this is this will be for issues 1 and 2, and we are pairing them together in kind of like a beautiful, perfect bound volume, almost like a thinner trade paperback. So it'll be bound like this, really nice book.
Nice.
We have a really thick hardstock cover. It's the thing about my books. I mean, you have the Jump sitting behind you,
right?
And you buy books in the comic shop, and they're of a certain quality, and you buy books on Kickstarter, and it runs the gamut. I mean, some people really try and scrimp and save any way they can, and so you get it, and the printing looks crappy, the ink looks crappy, and the art is already crappy. You will never in a million years see that with one of my books. We go all out. Perfect binding costs a lot more. That hardstock cover costs a lot more. The premium paper inside costs a lot more. The glossiness and everything costs a lot more. But I want to give people the best product imaginable. And so when you get it, you're going to feel the difference. You're going to see the difference. It is very much a Cadillac. When everyone else is selling used Subarus or whatever, this is a brand new Cadillac. And so, it's something that, again, you can put up on a shelf, and it looks great. And,
it does. So did this kind of the story, because you said this is something you wanted to write for years, is this just kind of comes out of your love for things like Fargo and that type of movie, or the true detective stories? Is that kind of where it's based off of then? Because you said that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, here's the thing is, like, I came up, I'm going to go way back here. I came up during kind of the Sundance era. I saw Pulp Fiction when I was younger, and it made me want to write movies. Right. And by the time I got out to LA, they had stopped making those movies. The independent film scene had kind of dried up. I mean, in a way, it kind of mutated and moved on to television with shows like The Wire and Breaking Bad and True Detective. I mean, 10 years before, True Detective would have been a Sundance movie, and Pulp Fiction now would be a 10-episode series on Netflix.
Yeah.
And so I came out to LA wanting to tell certain kinds of stories, and when I got here, they told me, oh no, you can't tell those, right? And so I mean, I sound like an idiot sitting here complaining about my day job, writing, big tentpole movies. But I mean, I love big action movies. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Give me a Fast and the Furious. I mean, I've written for the directors of, I think, 7 of the 9 Fast and the Furious movies at this point. Give me one of those any day of the week. Give me Die Hard.
Yep.
I am not a snob, and I've written plenty of that stuff, and I will write plenty of that stuff in comics. I kind of have and will. I think my first 2 books, were in a way kind of love letters to a lot of action movies that I fell in love with. But yeah, long story short, it's like I grew up kind of devouring Elmore Leonard novels, these kind of poppy crime dramas, where you're jumping from. I grew up in Detroit. Elmore Leonard was from Detroit,
Okay.
and and so he's jumping from Detroit to Florida to God knows where else. Sprawling, a lot of characters, big personalities, and they were more about character and substance, and that's character of in terms of the people, the characters you're
Right.
dealing with, but then also the character of a place and a time, and a subset of what you're dealing with. I mean, people in Detroit act a certain way, but then the guy playing poker in the back room of a laundromat is a completely different thing. You know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so
Yeah.
so here's the thing: is like I've been paid pretty well for 15 years to tell stories, um, and that whole time there were things I couldn't do and that I had always wanted to do, and so that's what this had grown out of. It was just what I've gotten to the point. I've been nominated for what 7 Ringos now, and I won one, and so I can kind of, to a degree, do what I want right now.
Right.
And if there was ever time to kind of like tee one up and let it fly, it was this. And so this is the shot I took.
Nice.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's awesome. So, and because it's just so interesting to hear kind of the backstory of like how the process is, how it gets into it, and all that. So we've talked about that there are going to be some tiers on this Kickstarter that people can get into. Although I know, following from your previous books of Banjax and The Jump and Aberrant, like you've got to have some unique variants lined up for this book. There's no way you don't, knowing you, because you always have your love letters to your favorite movies and things like that, or you music. So tell me what you have in store for the Peacekeepers, because I know you have something.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sitting here. I'm staring at I'm staring at your image here, and you have the Billy D. Williams variant behind you of
Right.
Aberrant, and the works every time, and then you have the Ghostbusters variant there too. So yeah, I mean, we're kind of known for our variants at this point, and I guess what I should say that I haven't said is that the art team doing
Yes.
doing the Peacekeepers is the same art team that did Aberrant. And again, Aberrant was we won a Ringo for best villain, and the artist had a lot to do with that. And we were nominated for 2 others, including best single issue and best writer. And so that same team is bringing you this book. It's a hell of a team. We've worked together. We're kind of a well-oiled machine right now, but all of that variant stuff started with these guys, right? And us kind of trying to make each other laugh and stuff like that. When Action Lab released, the first season of Aberrant, they were like, well, you need variant covers, for all sorts of different reasons, but people are variant crazy. They like to, they like to collect them. You sell more, all of that, like nuts and bolts business stuff. And it's like, I mean, you know me fairly well at this point. I don't do anything straightforward, and so if I was going to do variants, I was going to let loose. And so the first variant we did was that Billy D. Williams. Rather than a bottle of Colt 45, he's holding the regular cover of Aberrant issue
Right.
1 and saying Aberrant works every time. And then after that we did I think we did a Coming to America. I'm looking up here because all my covers are there. I can actually. I have this wall of
There's a wall of glory right there.
Yeah, crazy. Those are all the issues of that. So I did we did a Coming to America Zamunda variant that kind of blew people away at San Diego Comic-Con. We did an Elvis meeting Nixon variant. We did a couple of Elf variants, Elf from the 80s, the alien life form. We did a variant. We did a wire variant for Baltimore Comic Con, which was appropriate. We did a couple of Karate Kid variants. We did Karate Kid 2 first because I'm a sucker for Karate Kid 2. Then we did Karate Kid 1. We did a Point Break variant, a Wienermobile variant, a Top Gun Playing with the Boys volleyball team variant, and then Banjax we let loose too. We did a Rocky 4 variant, which was really very popular. We did a kind of a homage to the Iron Man Demon in a Bottle cover. Anyway. We have fun, and so yeah, we let loose here, and so really the covers here, and you feel free to put them up on this feed once you edit this together. yeah, we did a couple of homages. I mean, my favorite film ever is Fargo. And so we did we did a great kind of scenes from Fargo variant that I think is pretty amazing. A guy getting chewed up in a wood chipper right on the cover. And again, you can be the guy feeding that person into a wood chipper if you want to with our put you on a cover tier. Michael Mann's Heat is another one that I'm really excited about. That's in my top 5 movies. And we did another kind of scenes from Heat cover. You can see the theme here. This is very much a bank robbery, cops and robbers story. And so, I took 2 of my favorite movies in that genre and did that. And then finally, we have a nice meaty. We have another Point Break. Presidents getting ready for a bank robbery cover that is pretty awesome, and I think is going to be the most popular put you on a cover cover. So
Right.
So yeah, we had a lot of fun with those, and I think they're cool and they're badass. A lot of great images out of there. So
yeah. I mean, I'm telling you what, if you're still watching this interview or listening to it and you haven't hopped over to Kickstarter yet to put a pledge down, what are you doing? Because if you're not sold yet, I don't know what else will.
bit.ly/the Peacekeepers is an easy way to do it. I'm sure
and all the
link is
the links are are right below. So
cool.
If you want to stay with us a little bit longer, you can click the link afterwards, as long as you just do it today.
I guess that's something I should say is that I mean, a lot of people don't I think the inside baseball is always kind of popular. So what a lot of people don't understand is that the pledges, particularly on the first day, but in the first 48 hours, are uber important, because what they do is they set Kickstarter's algorithm for your project. So basically, if you perform very well in the first day, in the first 48 hours, then Kickstarter will promote you like hell internally, which means your campaign is uber successful, you do well. If you kind of fall on your face during the first day, the first 48 hours, then you're not going to get that internal promotion, and your project will most likely fail. So so first day pledges are crazy important. So yeah, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and click on the link. Just check it out. I mean, it's great. And I guess that the thing I haven't said, which I'm remiss in having not said it, is that the campaign has not even launched yet, and we have already been chosen as a project that Kickstarter loves. So project we love, as it were. So that's a big deal. Only a few projects get that designation, and so Kickstarter has already kind of given us their stamp of approval, and so that should mean something to you guys. It's worth taking a look at the very least.
So before we, I know we want to talk about a couple other things. Before we move on, I know we talked about variant covers. We've talked about being drawn in the books. Are there any other tiers that you want to highlight, about this Kickstarter for Peacekeepers that people might be interested in checking out?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess we already talked about the put you in your original story thing. That's a really interesting one. There are a lot of original art tiers that I think are really interesting. The first one is just we have a series of original hand drawn, hand inked. I don't know what you want to call them, sketch cards, or they're about 6x8, all hand drawn and inked by David Avallone, the artist on Aberrant and on the Peacekeepers. Those are great. I mean, we have some examples on the site, and again, you can just kind of pop them up here if you want to. But they're really great, interesting things. Those things tend to go like hotcakes, and they'll be limited. So if you want one of those, grab those early. The other original art things is we have commissions, and so you can get an original black and white commission from Davi, and Davi's done some. You can put stuff on, but
yep.
I'm gonna grab one of these too. This is good radio right now. I'm just stepping off.
That's fine.
But it's like, I mean, this guy draws the hell out of a scene, and so anything anything. I mean, this is just a scene from Karate Kid that he placed our characters into. So if you want to have him draw you in the final fight from Karate Kid, he will do it.
That's awesome.
If you want, if you want to, draw your neighbor, making sweet love to a goat or something like that, he will draw. um, and so it's very much anything goes. Your commissions, and I mean, to get an opportunity with an artist like that is
Right.
pretty rare. So we have black and white commissions, and then we have full color commissions too. And so Juan Joko Triono, who is our colorist, he's kind of my go-to colorist. Lives out in Indonesia. He will then come in and color over top of it, and his colors are bonkers. So so we have that those going on. We have one-on-one Skype sessions with yours truly, which are usually pretty interesting and pretty popular. I mean, if what I find with the fans is there a lot of wish to be going to be comic creators out there, screenwriters and the like. One of the things I spend a lot of time doing when we're not amid the apocalypse, right, like we are right now, is I do a lot of how-to panels at cons, just kind of helping people, get their books off the ground, that sort of thing. And now that we don't have the cons anymore, it's kind of hard to do that. And so this is an opportunity for that. It's almost kind of a one-on-one sort of mentoring thing. So anything you want to pick my brain about: how do I get my book off the ground? How do I break into the comic business? How do I, break into the film business? What should I be writing? That sort of thing. There were a couple of people that kind of did this stuff for me when I was coming up, and it was very important and very valuable. And what I find is that once I do one of these things, it turns into kind of a correspondence relationship after that.
Right.
So, I think the first time I did these Skype sessions, I did it for Creators for Comics had that big fundraiser online.
Oh yeah.
Where they were raising money for a good cause, and I put them out there, and I think I had 6 takers on Creators for Comics that they just made donations, and I did these things, and I think I keep in contact with almost all of them. Once a month, once every couple of months, I get an email from them being like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And so it turns into a kind of long-term relationship, for
Right.
better or for worse. So there's that opportunity. I guess the other thing is we have producer tiers, which are really interesting. I have for when I started writing in Hollywood, I mean, there's a lot of the kind of paid, the paid hired gun work that I do, but I also do my own original stuff. In the beginning, you'd write a spec script, you took it out, you sold it.
Yeah.
That was how you did things. But then things kind of changed, right? And the town became all about IP. Everything had to be based on something, whether it was a book, a short story, a comic book, whatever. And I had a few lean years, and finally I got kind of wise, and I'm like, well, if Hollywood wants IP, then I'm going to give them IP. And so had these kind of ideas percolating for a long time that maybe a few years before I would have turned into a spec script, but rather than doing that, I sort of took one, wrote it as a short story, got the short story published, and then had a bidding war overnight. Had Justin Lin on one side and Robert De Niro and Brett Ratner on the other side. Tyler Perry made offers for it. It was a big deal, and the agents kind of thought it was a fluke, but short and sweet, I did it with short stories probably 6-7 more times, and then and then have done it with comics ever since. And so my business has been setting up IP in Hollywood. And so we have, you have the opportunity with this campaign to kind of sign on as a producer now. And so you will, if you pledge this tier, you receive a credit as a producer in the actual comic book. And then in the future, when it gets set up as a TV show or a movie, you will receive the same credit in the TV show, in the movie, that sort of thing. It's worked already. We have a producer on the Aberrant property that came through on something like this. And I think it was 2 weeks before the second issue of Aberrant hit comic shops. It was already set up as a TV series. We had Tony Krantz, who was the producer of 24 and Felicity, and produced Mulholland Drive for David Lynch. He's just a 900-pound gorilla in the film business, and is doing Woo Assassins now for Netflix.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's producing that as a TV series, and one of our kind of one of our backer producers is now on that property as a producer also. So really unique opportunity. You're not going to get that anywhere else. I mean, there are a lot of film projects on Kickstarter that do similar things, but this is a kind of a more interesting thing. So again, talk about being part of the book. You receive a credit right next to ours. It says, writer Rylend Grant, artist, David Avallone Diaz, colorist Juan Joko Triono, letterer HD, and then producer, your name here. So
yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, you talking about Aberrant. Got Ringo, that won a Ringo Award, you said, for best villain.
Best villain, yeah, was nominated for 2 others, yeah.
Okay, and nominated for 2 others. Now, Banjax is also been nominated for what, 4 Ringos? Is that right?
4 Ringos this go round, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, was really excited about it, and the big one was we got nominated for best series, which is like a huge get. So, I mean, we're up against Bitterroot and Black Hammer.
Yeah.
It's kind of a murderer's row. It was funny. It was like last year I got nominated for best writer, which was a huge deal, but I was nominated with, it was me, Jeff Lemire, Scott Snyder, Brian Michael Bendis, and Brian K. Vaughan. So it was like me and 4 first ballot Hall of Famers. It was just that, there was a huge honor to be nominated, but there was no way I was gonna win that one. And it's a similar thing with this best series thing. We somehow kind of snuck our way into the bottom of the best series category. I mean, because it's a great book, and I'm not saying it's of any lower quality than those books, but though we're up against some like big label have been around for a long time books, and this is this tiny indie book that went 4 issues. So huge deal. But then the big coup for me was that I managed to get my entire art team nominated. So Fabio Alves, who was also the artist on The Jump, and behind you, it's the entire Jump team actually. So Fabio Alves, the artist, was nominated for best cover artist. Edson Ferreira was nominated for best colorist, and then HDE, my go-to letterer and everything, was nominated for best letterer. So that was big deal. And they announced those this weekend actually on Saturday as part of the you can watch those as part of Baltimore Comic-Con Live.
Okay.
The Ringos traditionally take place at Baltimore Comic-Con, and last year we got to fly out and do the whole red carpet thing, and then go and drink beers with Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire afterwards and all that noise. None of that this year for obvious reasons. So it's all being done online, and it's a great show online. I mean, it's just anyone who's anyone in comic books is kind of contributing to the broadcast, and Kevin Smith is hosting it, which is kind of cool. And I mean, the other cool thing there is, I sort of alluded to earlier, in this interview, my friend David Avallone. Again, David Avallone does a lot of Dynamite. He's kind of one of Dynamite's big go-to writers, and he wrote Drawing Blood with Kevin Eastman. We've been hosting this podcast for the last couple of months called The Writer's Block, and it is kind of I guess I pitched it to you before we started recording here, and the way to explain it is, we as creators, we miss cons very obviously, like anyone misses cons, but the biggest thing we miss about cons is kind of the post-con day hangout. After a day on the floor, we all go to the same bar across the street, and we sit down and we let loose, and we just kind of wax poetic about whatever, right? And so we have tried to, I don't know, sort of distill that down and put it into a podcast. And so once a week we invite a couple of our friends on, and we just kind of let loose, and we start out talking about state of the union, state of the industry,
right?
Whatever the topic of the day is, and then it ultimately kind of degenerates into us arguing about old Star Trek episodes or whatever. And it's been awesome. We've had Kevin Eastman on, we've had David F. Walker on, Erica Schultz, Scout, co-publisher, Charlie Stickney. We've had a lot of kind of big time guests on, and the show has been received pretty well. And so because of that, we have been given kind of the anchor leg in the Ringo Awards pregame coverage. And so we are they're doing about 5 hours of kind of pre-game coverage, almost like you would do for the Super Bowl
Right.
on
Yeah.
Baltimore Comic-Con Live for the Ringos. And we are the anchor leg of that. So we are the hour before like Kevin Smith goes live and says, "Hey, welcome to the Ringos." So we're going to have some big time guests. I wish I could tell you who they are right now, but we are in the throes of crossing T's and dotting I's
Yeah.
on the the imaginary contracts of it all. But it's going to be an hour that you don't want to miss. So tune into the Ringos because they're awesome. It's kind of the best show in comics. But right before then, Avallone and I are going to have a little party with some Hall of Famers. So
That's
so tune in.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, because we've talked about, one of the reasons I kind of started, doing interviews and stuff like this is because I miss going to cons. We were set to go to Lexington Comic Con 2 weeks, after everything shut down. And so cons shut down and, but I wanted to just have this moment to kind of create ways that I can bring creators in and talk and share behind the scenes with fans a little bit about what they do. And so I think what you guys are now doing is an even cooler aspect because we get to see some of those like, oh, how do you get into creating? How do you do those types of interviews? Most of us don't get the privilege of being, a fly on the, wall at a bar that you and a handful of other creators are talking about stuff afterwards, and to just kind of see how what comes up and what you guys talk about and what that is. I think that's kind of cool to get that behind the scenes a little bit like that, and get invited into the pub with you guys.
Yeah, and that's really what we were going after. I mean, it was I didn't the joke is that everybody has a podcast now in this post-COVID world, and there's truth to that. And
Yep.
I didn't want to be that guy. And everybody that rushed, every creator that rushed to do a podcast, they're basically doing the same podcast. If we were going to do something, we want to do something different. And it's just like, hey, what do we miss? What is, because we've been part of this community. I mean, we were lucky enough to fall in with this group of, it was YouTubers that started a lot of the Comic Core guys, and some other people that they staged this thing called Mainframe Comic Con, which was pretty amazing. And just put on like the best online con that we've seen thus far. And they did 3 Mainframe Comic Cons since COVID hit. Big time guests, big time panels, just an amazing show. And it was so well received that then they got invited to come in and do the online version of Baltimore Comic Con and the Ringos and everything. And so, and I have been to, the degree that I can, involved in kind of planning those things. I've been lucky in doing that. And so we took a lot of lessons from them. I mean, it was like, well, what are we missing in terms of cons? And so it was like, okay, well, there are people doing a lot of this stuff very well. Again, like you said, like you were missing something from the con experience, from the creator experience. And that's what I love about your show, is that your show, in my opinion, it kind of approximates the Artist Alley experience for a fan. It used to be that I set up at a table and I had conversations like this with fans that were coming through, and so you are the fans proxy, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You're kind of walking them in, and it's like, okay, well, what would they want to ask this person? What would they, if they could ask any question and pick their brains? I don't get to have these. So again, like,
right.
You guys, like you're already doing this very well. There's no reason for me to come in and do this. There's at Mainframe Comic Con, they're doing a lot of amazing things, staging panels and conversations and stuff like that. There's no reason for me to do that. What is the thing that is missing? And this is what Avallone and I could do. This is what we came up with, and I think we did a pretty damn good job. And I think the the sort of bitch of it all is that it'll probably be imitated a million times after this, and somebody will get famous for it, and then they'll take all the credit. But I think we're the first people doing it, and it's cool because it's like we Avallone and I have been doing this long enough where we have we have great friends and friends who are now in doing big time books, and again, I mean, our friend Charlie Stickney, I mean, it was like he was quote unquote one of us a year ago. he was a guy, who was doing books on Kickstarter and pushing this like Sisyphusian boulder uphill, and now he is running what is probably the hottest publishing company in the game right now with Scout Comics. So it's been kind of fun to. I mean, of course, we have our friends like Kevin Eastman and David F. Walker who have been doing it forever and have their their Eisners and all that stuff. But we're also seeing, again, David Pepos is, perhaps my closest friend in comics, and I mean, he's going to be writing, Avengers in, a year or two. I mean, it probably would have happened already if not for this COVID stuff. But I mean, it's already happened. My my other best friend in comics, Sean Lewis, Sean's done a bunch of amazing books at Image.
It was Thumbs was one of my favorite books of 2019. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he was throwing 100 miles an hour and painting the corners with that book also. But he they announced this week that he's writing fucking Superman now.
Right.
So
he's doing that future state for DC. It's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I hope he remembers me. But yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is, I mean, Sean and I have known each other forever, like since we were kids, basically. We were both 19 and we ended up at NYU together. And he was an actor at that point, studying at the Stella Adler Conservatory, and I was a film student on break from Michigan and interning for Hal Hartley and Martin Scorsese. And so we met back then, and we've been friends ever since. And we kind of just by chance kind of kicked our way into this comic game around the same time. He's got a few years on me, but so hopefully in a few years I'm writing Superman. But I don't even know if I would write Superman, but you know what I mean. It's nice to see our friends start to blow up, and so cool. So that then being able to kind of sit down with these guys and gals in a comic setting is great.
That's awesome. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I'm so thankful for you just hopping on and talking. We've been talking a lot about Kickstarter with Peacekeeper. We've been talking the Ringo Awards. We've been talking about your new podcast, The Writer's Block. Anything else, or where can people find you, follow along with what you're doing? Because I feel like you were doing something all the time. And so stay connected.
That's fair to say. I am on all matters of social media at Rylend Grant, RYLENDGRANT. I always spell it because it's not a real name. My parents just kind of threw some letters together and saddled me with it, so it's hard to spell. It's hard to comprehend. Again, I'm sure it's in the show notes, and it may even be on the screen here. But yeah, I mean, I'm always popping off on social media, and if you go there, you'll find my Linktree and all of that stuff with links to everything else. Aberrant and Banjax, those fine books that are over your shoulder there, are available in comic shops everywhere and on Comixology and Amazon. You can still get copies of The Jump, the backer kit, The Jump, all one word, .backerkit.com. And then also we're offering The Jump and a lot of the rewards that were associated with The Jump as add-ons in the Peacekeepers campaign. So you may not see them initially, but when you choose a tier, you can then go and add the add-ons. So if you miss The Jump, and The Jump is kind of an amazing psychological thriller that takes place in the world of astral projection, kind of a high concept sci-fi thing. So great book. You can get it now via the Peacekeepers campaign on Kickstarter. And the Writer's Block can be found on YouTube. It's, like I said, it's probably on a half dozen channels at this point, but it's just called The Writer's Block with Rylend Grant and David Avallone, and we got a lot of great shows. Look back, and if you click my Linktree on Twitter or Instagram, you'll find an easy link to that. And the main thing I have going on right now is the Peacekeepers, right? Yeah. So that launched today on Kickstarter, and we're recording this before, but I'm really bad at acting like it's going, but I'm sure it's kicking ass right now. It's taking names, it's breaking all the records, it's crushing it. It's crushing it. We're envisioning it a couple days ahead, but it's crushing it. Here's the thing: is an hour in, it was deemed the greatest book to ever hit Kickstarter. So so you're missing out if you don't. But go literally in the middle of this interview, it's the greatest Kickstarter project ever made. So if you guys aren't hopping over there now and hopping on, I don't know what you're doing. Yeah, and but it's a great book, and you know, again, it's a double issue, 64 pages, you know, for the price of a regular issue, essentially, on Kickstarter. Great, great value, and it's just, you know, I had so much fun writing it. We had so much fun bringing it to life. Again, a story I wanted to tell for 15 years. So yeah, I mean, if you're going to read one book of mine, you should read all of them because they're great. But in my humble opinion, but this is the book. Go take a look at it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, Rylend, thank you so much for just taking some time to just talk about comics and what you're working on and creating and everything like that. So I appreciate it.
For the opportunity, man. Love the show. So
Awesome.
thanks for the invite.
And for all you guys who are watching, hopefully you can find some time. Go ahead, click that link below. Go get on this Kickstarter right now. But after that, find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.